Hey everybody, it's Mitch and welcome to my next video. Today we are going to be doing another Dungeons & Dragons video, and today it's going to be a class description. I know, we haven't had one of those in like 6 years. And today we will be talking about the Psion here. Yeah, we spent a lot of time doing races and prestige classes, but now we're going to do some of the classes. And today we'll be talking about the Psion. We're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about, well, how they are as characters. Like, what kind of people are they, you know? We're going to be talking about all those role play aspects, which are really important. But then once we finish that, we're going to be talking about the statistics. We're going to be talking about, your gameplay information, That's what we'll be talking about, their stats. So, with that said, let's jump right into this. Oh, and if you're new, subscribe. We're doing one on these on every single class, race, and prestige class. So, yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about these guys. Oh, and they're from the Expanded Psionics Handbook, in case you were curious. So, Psions. Well, they are people who they generate power through the power of their mind. They just sort of will things into existence, or they can read your mind, or there's actually various different disciplines, and each one of the 6 disciplines is completely different. It's very similar to it's similar to schools with wizards, but there are some significant differences between them, namely that, well, we'll get into that. So it's got that going on. These Psions are people who are very obsessed with their self. They want to make themselves the best self that they can possibly be. And by doing that, they are able to channel their mental powers, which they start to develop generally around puberty, similar to a sorcerer. Although they can start earlier, they just start getting stronger around then. And it's just sort of like innate powers that they have. And some decide to go with it, some decide to abandon it. It really depends. But when you actually become a Psion, you say, yes, I will embrace this gift of mine. So that's kind of their childhood, and like their person, like they're very inwardly focused, thinking. Spend a lot of time in their head. Like there's a lot of time there. And it will vary a little bit depending on exactly what kind of Psion we're talking about. If we're talking about a telepath, they start out thinking in their heads, but then they're in your head. Like they get so in their head that they get in someone else's head. Other types, they'll get in, they can move things with their mind, or they can create things out of nothing. Like, yeah. So, yeah. When Psions go on adventures, they are doing so to fulfill themselves. So they're going out in an attempt to gain new experiences so that they can have more to meditate on and more to reflect in on, and they just gain more information, which helps their brains process more, and it just gives them more to work with, which is effectively how they're leveling up. They're getting these new experiences that create, new memories and stuff for them to meditate on, which makes them more powerful. They unlock new powers in this way. So, like I said, they draw powers from their mind. Their alignments tend towards neutrality on the law chaos scale, but it's absolutely not a requirement. They can be lawful and they can be chaotic. They just tend towards neutrality because they spend so much time in their mind that they really don't have time for that. And good or evil, they can go either way on that as well. So, yeah. Now, in terms of races, like, they can really be of any race. Now, the psionic races are a little more likely, particularly the Alans and actually the Mind Flayers too, interestingly enough, because, they're very psychically attuned, and especially with the Alans, like, they're very big on, like, becoming like they become the psychic. That's like part of the whole racial thing. So, by choosing to become an Alan, you are likely going to choose to be a Psion as well. Like, they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, the part of the reason why he chose to become a Lon is likely in order to become a better Psion. Now, Psions, they are, well, they're an interesting one. So in terms of their role in the party, they're going to be similar to that of the sorcerer or the wizard. They're very similar to casters in that regard. So they're going to basically be a replacement for your caster, more or less. Although they're not quite the same. There's some significant differences, but they play a similar role. So yeah, speaking of which, in terms of what other classes they get along with, wizards and sorcerers and other casters are ones they don't tend to get along with because they see magic as like a shortcut. They see it as like cheating the mind. So they actually don't like magic, interestingly enough. But they do get along well with like psychic warriors and monks because they have that same like goal for inner perfection and striving to make oneself better and to grow through that method. So they're really big with that. Other classes, it's, they don't have any strong feelings, particularly one way or the other. So that's really what we have for the the role play mechanics for these guys. How you would actually go about role playing as a Psion. You're going to be very much in your head. You're going to kind of not look too favorably on magic. You're going to like the monks and the psychic warriors. Everyone else you're going to be kind of like whatever with. Nothing for or against them. Yeah, so, and you're going to be out there just very much working on improving yourself, like working on being the best you can possibly be. That's going to be your goal. Now, when we get into the actual stats and statistics, well, these guys are definitely interesting. So it seems boring on the surface. So let's look through this. So you have bad base attack bonus, very much like a wizard and sorcerer. They play very similar to them. It's kind of like a cross between them in a little bit of a way. They have a bad fortitude and reflex saves, but they have a good will save. Again, very similar to a sorcerer or wizard. Now, in terms of special things they get their discipline at first level, which they basically have to choose between one of the 6 disciplines. Actually, they do have to choose. And then every 5th level plus 1st level, they get a bonus feat. And that bonus feat has to be a psionic one, I believe. So, it has to be psionic or meta-psionic, very similar to that of the wizard. So how it has to be like a meta magic or item creation. This is kind of the same thing. So it has to be in that range. Now, their gain powers known. So at first level, they'll have 3 known powers that they can choose from. And before we talk too much about powers, let's start talking about disciplines. So there's 6 different disciplines. And then there's also just general Psion powers. Now, any Psion can cast any general Psion power. Those are available to all Psions, and that's probably about half the spells. The other half, probably a little more. This might be 40, 60. I think something like that. The other ones are from the 6 disciplines. Now, a Psion is capable of using any general ones and any power from his discipline, and none of the others. So it can't touch any of the other discipline-specific ones without a specific feat, which you can do, but basically you're gaining a feat in order to gain 1 extra power known. It's not bad if you have something specific in mind that you normally can't cast, or manifest. Not cast, that's spellcaster. Very, very similar, but yeah. All right, so that's basically how that works. So they're going to get 3 at first level. Then for the first, I think, 10 levels, they're going to get, 1 every other level up till like 10th level. Not every other. They're going to get 2 every level up till 10th level. Just 2 per level, new powers known that they can have, and they can be at any level. Generally, you're going to want to put them at the highest. And yeah, so you're going to do that. So that you're going to get, basically 2 every level. Then once you hit 11th, starting at 11th level, your odd levels, you're only going to gain 1, and your even, you'll gain 2. So you only get, 3 out of every 4 levels. Not bad. So that's very similar to the wizard, except it's just 2 per level. Whereas the Psion, it's 2 per level for the first 10 levels, and then, 3 out of 4 levels after that. So similar to the wizard, except the wizards can learn spells through scrolls and just gain as many as they want as long as they got the money for it. That is not the case for your Psion. They can only learn them by leveling up, which makes them similar to a wizard, although also kind of sort of similar to a sorcerer in that they're limited in it. So yeah, but they're less limited than a sorcerer, especially in that they don't have, they get more at higher levels. They don't have the restrictions of, only so many per level. Like, they can kind of do whatever they want. They could only learn first level powers if they really wanted to. I don't know why they'd want to do that, but they can. Unless there's not enough, then I guess they'd have to start picking second. But my point is, yeah, like, you can just keep going with the first level ones. Now, their progression is going to be similar. It's actually exactly the same as the wizard. So the same levels that a wizard's going to get spells, these guys are going to get powers. So they're going to get one every third level. So every odd level, they are going to get higher level powers. So first level, they get first level. Third level, they'll get second. Fifth level, they get third, so on and so forth. So yeah. Now, how Psions work, and it's just very different than spellcasters, they get PowerPoints instead, not to be confused with the software, but they get PowerPoints that will allow them to cast or manifest their powers, which gives them way more flexibility. So basically, a first level power will take 1 PowerPoint when unaugmented. A second level will take 3. Basically, the number of PowerPoints that it costs to manifest the power is going to be equal to the minimum level that you can cast it or manifest it. And you can manifest the power up to, you can use a number of PowerPoints on a particular power that's equal to your manifestor level. There's a few exceptions to this. There's actually ways to boost that. There's some feats, but those will cause those aren't free. Like, the feat you have to take, but even using the feat isn't free. Like, you have to, I think you take some damage doing it. So there's that. But anyways, so manifesting. So you get a number of points per level. It starts out small at 2, but by 20th level, you're at 343. And that's not including bonus ones from a high int, which there's a whole table for. It's actually way more complicated than bonus spells, because bonus spells don't really factor in level so much. This one will, although it's not fully, because there's a difference between higher level spells. So it's kind of isn't as good, the bonus powers, but it's not bad. It's complicated. It's really, really complicated. So yeah, the difference between these is so complicated. So one of the main differences between spellcasting and psionics is with spellcasting, it's a much more rigid system. You have your spell levels, and you have only so many spell slots per level. With this, it's PowerPoints. You just have a number of points per day that you can cast, and these points, every time you manifest a power, it depletes them. So it doesn't really matter what level it is. You could use all first level. You could just, manifest the first level power unaugmented, 400 times per day, assuming average intelligence, that about how many PowerPoints you'd have. So you could just do that. Or, you could do something a little more useful and use some higher level ones, which is more likely what you'll do, is dump things more into the higher end of things. But, or at the very least, augment your lower level powers. So powers, we haven't talked about augmenting. So with spellcasting, a lot of spells will just sort of advance as you level up, So the damage done or other components of the spell are variable depending on your caster level, and sometimes other things like your stats. With powers, that isn't the case. Powers are not variable based on your manifester level. So at least not directly. They can be augmented to do that. And with that, when augmenting them, they're actually better than spells. But when augmenting a lower spell, a lower level power up to the highest amount that's possible, so that you're augmenting it to to use a number of power points equal to your level, you're using the same resources as you would for a higher level spell. So yeah, it's more powerful, but you're using more resources to do it. It's not free. It's better when augmented, so you can get more use out of it, but you have to use resources. And that's one of the differences. One of the main differences between a Psion and a wizard or a sorcerer even, which is why they seem a little more sorcerer-like, even though they're designed to play like a wizard, is because psionics is more free than spellcasting. There's a much greater degree of flexibility that comes with psionics, whereas with spellcasting, it's a much more rigid system. But that rigidity gives you some advantages in that, well, your spells are going to get more powerful as you level up. The same spell that you had at first level will be stronger now that you're 5th level. That's true for a lot of spells, particularly the blasting ones. Now, this is just not the case with psionics. It's not even just the blasting ones. Other things too, like a lot of buffing spells, like they just give better effects as you get higher level. With psionics, you have to pay more points in order to get that same effect. So, although you can get even greater effects with psionics. So psionics can come across as very front-ended. Like because they have this flexibility, they can dump a lot of power points and get so much power, a lot more than a spellcaster could for a few rounds until they run out of power points. Like they can dump those power points much, much quicker than a spellcaster could dump their spells. And by doing that, they become more useful in combat, at least for a little bit. But I keep saying at least for a little bit, because the problem is when you're doing this, you're running out of your power points, and then you become useless much, much quicker. Spellcasters do not have to worry about this as much. Yes, there are ways around this, but there's a ways around it for spellcasters too, and quite frankly, they're roughly as good, so you're still behind overall, even when doing stuff like that. So psionics, great. Psion, great class. At some point, I might do one on the individual disciplines, but for now, I think I've gone on long enough about this. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like. That definitely helps me out. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. Like I said before, we do one of these on every single class, every single race, every single prestige class. At least we're working on it. But, I need your guys' support. I'm doing this as a labor of love. I haven't made a single penny off of this yet. So I can't just do this for free forever. I'm going to need, to get some support. I'm going to need to either grow this channel, or I'm going to need some other way to make this really worth my time, because I got bills to pay, and this isn't doing that. I love making these videos for you guys, but yeah. Anyways, as always, like I say, like, subscribe, comment, because I love hearing what you guys have to say. I'll respond to every single comment I get. But as always, I'm Mitch. I'll be seeing you.